Hey folks, welcome to the program. This is not the program yet. It's just the pre-show for those of you who know what's going on around these parts. And let's see, we've got 4 minutes and about 20 seconds left until we get rolling on the radio station. So welcome to everybody. Steve Clark, good to see you. Niall Parkinson, good to see you. Both of you guys having weather. It's been cold here. But it's supposed to be nice and warm by the weekend again, up into the 70s, which is pretty good. Hey, Dave Potter, Uncle Dave, good to see you. And everybody, I'm going to start letting you know right now, tonight's show, I pre-recorded earlier today. Now, this segment, of course, is live, and I'll be back at the end of the show for the Captain's Cabin. But I was interviewing a friend of mine in London, and she couldn't do the early hour thing. And so we pre-recorded, and we're going to play that recording when we get started here, once we go dark and go out to the titles. So I'll join the chat room, and so I'll be in and out of the chat room. And so you can enjoy the show that way. Let me get the stream going for the radio. And I'm going to put that on silent because I don't need that. And Matthew Sainsbury, good to see you. Grumpy Stack, good to see you. Roger Rabbit, always good to see you, brother. And so I think you'll enjoy the show tonight just as much as if it were live. Just you won't be able to talk to Wendy tonight. Wendy's a friend of mine in London. I announced all of that when we get into the show. And she couldn't do the 3 a.m. show for me. And so we've got her pre-recorded for tonight. So Eric Hayes, good to see you, brother. Glad you stopped in. This, if you haven't been here, this is the pre-show. Anybody else who hasn't been here before, we start the show at 4 minutes and 26 seconds after the top of the hour. That's when we are officially live over at Odyssey Radio. So this is the pre-show, just to make sure I have everything set up okay. And as I already announced, hey, Scott Allen, you were going to ask her a question, and she won't be here unless she wakes up at around 4 a.m. her time and slips over into the Captain's Cabin. We'll see if she makes it in. Maybe you can ask her a question then. But we're setting this up for doing more shows like this and doing them live, possibly on a different day at a different time than the regular radio show. So you'll enjoy this tonight still. I'm going to come over into the chat room. And I think if Wendy happens to wake up, and because she's excited to see how it's going, she might slip into the chat room. Maybe even over into the Captain's Cabin. We've got 1 minute till we get rolling here. If you're awake, she might be. She just has totally different body chemistry probably than yours, Niall. So, hey, Sarah Yusuf. Does she have a website? She doesn't have her own website anymore, but she is on Facebook and she is on Instagram. You can find her under Wendy Robertson on Facebook, and you can find her under, I think, Wendy Rob, R-O-B, over on Instagram. You can also find her under Dark Huntress, and we don't talk about that today, but that's the some of the other stuff that she does. So I'm going to go dark. Stand by. I'm going to get us all set up, and hang in there. I'll see you back at the Captain's Cabin.
Intrepid Radio Program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
Are you looking for a really awesome and amazing graphic designer? How about an illustrator or a photographer? This is Rainey Roberts, and I wanted to tell you how you can get my designer, illustrator husband, Scotty Roberts, to work for you on your project. Do you have an awesome self-published book but no cover, or even worse, a cover that really sucks? Do you need a kick-ass logo for your company or some f***ing awesome graphic designs for your ads or website? Then get in touch with my husband for the best f***ing awesome kick-ass design and illustration. He knows his stuff, and he's been at this for more years than I've been alive. Go to ScottAllenRoberts.com. That's Scott with two T's, ALANROBERTS.com to take a look at his online portfolio of work, or call 651-468-8115. Now go out and kick some ass with some kick-ass graphic design.
Hire my dad, so he can take me to Disneyland.
You're listening to the Intrepid Radio Program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
You're damned skippy, it's Intelligent Talk. Welcome to the program. I'm your host, Scotty Roberts, and this here is my show, the Intrepid Radio broadcast, as heard every night of the week, Monday through Friday. You can hear us in audio format only over on Odyssey Radio. That's ODYSY radio.com. And you can see the visual video simulcast over on my YouTube channel and 3 different places on Facebook. Now, if you want to join the chat room, the best place to do that is over at youtube.com/Scotty Roberts. And you can join the chat room, which is probably already rolling over there and being led by my moderators over there. So join the Intrepid family and come on over. If you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button and also the little bell, which will give you the alerts for when this show airs, which is every Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, United States. Unless you're in Australia or New Zealand, like some of our listeners are, and it's tomorrow at 2 p.m. or something like that. So, or like my guest, Wendy, 3 a.m. in the morning. So if you're up in the wee hours and you want to listen over there in England live, that's when you can catch us. You can also find about 750 plus episodes archived over on my YouTube channel. So you have hours and hours and days and weeks and months of listening if you've got nothing better to do. And I see my guest, Wendy. She's over there in the window. I see her out in the wings. And I want to introduce her, but I want to give her more of an opportunity to do introduction. But Wendy has been a friend of mine, a dear friend of mine for probably 18 years, I want to say. Maybe it's nigh unto 20. I don't know for sure. We lost track. But Wendy, I've known for a long time. She's a good friend of mine. And, if I hadn't been married to the lovely, vivacious, wonderful Rainey, Randy and I probably would have been married, and I'd be over in England exploring all the sites over there with her. So she can contradict me on that if she wants, or just let it stand. And so I'm going to bring Wendy in with no further delay. And so, Wendy, if you are ready over there, I'm going to bring you into the channel. But first, I'm going to drop this banner because it works better without the banner. And I'm going to add you in. Hello. Boom. There's Wendy Robertson, my dear friend Wendy over in England. She lives outside of London. And not to pinpoint it too much for those of you who are now fervently seeking on Google Earth to find her location. She's in Sutton, Surrey. So outside of London. Now, That's south of London or north of London, something like
It's
that.
south. It's
South of London. Okay. How far are you from the hubbub of downtown London?
Just enough to be nice.
Just enough to be nice. I've seen pictures out your windows there, and it doesn't look like you're close to the city, but
I'm not. No, which is good because it's quite expensive. So I'm sort of in one of the suburbs out of it. Yeah.
Yes. So let's tell people a little bit about you. From what I have known for years, you are a psychic medium, but when you say that nowadays about somebody, it's like a 2-cent word anymore.
Yeah.
Because everybody is psychic. If I could, and I said this just the other night on the show, for every event I've ever been to, when I was out with the ghost hunters and would speak at those events and do things, I met so many people that would come up to me in the bar and they've got their little snifter of whatever they're drinking. They'll go, Scotty, I just want to tell you, I'm psychic. And I thought, if I had a dime for every time somebody told me they were psychic, I'd already be retired and living on a white sand beach in the Caribbean somewhere, drinking my mint juleps. But I also have my bullshit can, I call it. People that 9/10 of the people, not even 9/10, 99% of the people that will come to me and say I'm psychic, I usually am like, bullshit. Okay, well, tell me about it. And I toss it in my bullshit can.
Yeah.
But you're the real thing, the real McCoy, as they say down here in Appalachia. So why don't you tell us a little bit about you? What is your particular gift? I want to hear about, you've got other stuff that's like in the psychological field or something like that you've done as well. There's a lot that bolsters this spiritual gift you have. Tell us about it. Tell us when you first realized you had it and what it means to you.
Well, thank you for the lovely introduction, Scotty. I honestly, I was blushing as much as my jacket because that's a lovely introduction. So thank you.
No, you're welcome.
Sorry, Rainey.
It's okay. She loves you too. So she loves you because you're over in England.
She does. She wouldn't like me if I was over there. I know. We'll do coffee. So thank you. Yes. There's many strings to the bow, but I have to say the psychic side, and I agree with you. A lot of people use the term psychic, and it covers a very, very large area. And it wasn't something that I went looking for, and it wasn't something that I thought, oh, that sounds like a good idea. It actually, I didn't know that my family had a background in it. It was when I was 7 years of age that I discovered that I had something that kind of scared the crap out of me, actually.
Sure.
I was very, very young, and I remember like hearing, it was, if you remember that film The Sixth Sense, where the little boys that I would hear, it's gonna make me sound like crazy, but I would hear different voices in different languages and talking to me. And I honestly had no idea what was going on, absolutely none. And I didn't like it. I would say to my mum, it was really not nice at all. And so my mum did the right thing. First of all, she took me to the doctors and got me checked out. And they were like, no, she's absolutely fine. She's not, schizophrenic or hearing voices or anything like that. She's absolutely fine. And then my mum, although my nan was more involved in that side of the field, my mum wasn't. So my mum spoke to my nan, who then said, look, I think Wendy's got, the gift, and it's coming out early. When you're 7 years of age, you don't want that because you're more interested in playing with your mates and doing stuff like that. So I actually wanted it gone because I was clairaudient at the time. Clairaudient means I hear. So I used to hear it. And then my mum and nan took me to she was quite well known at the time, Minnie Woodbridge, and medium. And she sat down and explained to me what was going on. And I guess I understood as much as I could at that point. And she said, we're going to help you shut it down if this is what you want. And I said, yeah, I do. I want it shut down. So she sat with me, and, I really don't know what she did, but within, I would say, a couple of months, it was getting quieter and quieter, and then it just stopped. And for years there was nothing at all. And I was living in a house at the time which was very, very active. I have to use the word active because my professional
active is good. Yeah.
My professional husband will beat me.
Yes.
If I use the word haunted, he's like, Wendy.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
By the way, her professional husband, that's a friend of Wendy's, they do a radio show together. We'll talk about that in a bit.
Yeah.
But you can mention that too.
So we use the word active. So literally it was quite active. There was a lot of activity, not very nice activity going on in the house. And it's one thing I haven't even covered this in the podcast that we do. But I would say it was probably about 15, 16 before I then started to, I went to a couple of spiritualist churches with my mum, and it kind of just felt like natural for me to go, I'm really intrigued to see if I want to take this further. And I was given a gift of pack of tarot cards, and I thought, well, that there's a sign. And I went along one day to this market, and there was this sign up saying, do you want to learn the tarot, doing classes here? So I thought, okay, I'll go along. Well, my teachers, without saying too much, were very interesting. They were quite unusual. And I was 23, pretty nervous, and thought, well, I've got my pack of tarot, let's go. Anyway, we did this weekend course, and I badgered a few friends to come with me. Anyway, I had to give a reading to one of the teachers, and she scared the bejesus out of me. and she really did. She was quite
was it the information she gave you about you, or just
no? She was very intimidating in lots of ways, let's put it that way. And I gave her a reading, and she said, I don't care what it is, you just tell me as you say it, Wendy. You just tell me as you say it. So I was like, okay. So I gave her this reading of what I saw, and she sat there listening to me, nodding and nodding. And I'm thinking, this is terrible. I have no idea what I'm talking about. But I just gave her what I came through. And she turned around and she said to me, you're absolutely spot on. And without divulging, obviously, her information, but you're absolutely spot on. And you're good. You need to train. And it just threw me, because I was like, wow, really? And then I went and trained, and I learned all about the tarot and the origins of it. And it was something I felt very, very drawn to. And then I went and sat in a psychic development circle at my local spiritualist church, and they taught me how to open up, close down.
In essence, to take what you have.
Yes.
And make that work better for you. Because I've heard a million times over the last 20 years, everybody's psychic. And, sometimes I buy it and sometimes I don't. But I also do think that being psychic is something you have to hone, just like anything else. I've got a talent to draw pictures. But if I never drew pictures, I would never get any better. I would never improve my skills. So I suppose it's got to be the same way with that, huh?
Well, you have to hone your craft, whatever you do in life. And in between sitting in psychic development circles, I suffered with ill health and still do. I suffer with health issues even now. And sometimes it makes me in a place where I cannot really do anything. And some days I'm good. So in between struggling with that and also wanting to help other people, I went and studied counseling, and I did a 3-year diploma at 25, and I was quite young, because normally they don't like you that young, they like you older, that you've had some life's experience.
Sure.
But I was 25, and I kind of, please, I really want to do this course, and they said, okay, you can do it. And it really changed my life, because once you've trained to be a counselor, you're never the same. You don't listen the same, you don't analyze the same. It changes you forever. You're always looking at body language and stuff like that. And so I did 3 years with that, and I worked in all kinds of fields, like voluntary to begin with, probation, domestic violence, AIDS, alcohol, drugs, relationship, one-to-one, and occult. So I did, like cults. I did quite a lot. I tried to get a lot. So when I qualified, I actually thought, do I really want to carry on with this? Because I had this other side to me that when I was counseling someone, were coming through and giving me information, because when I reopened again, I wasn't clairaudient, I was clairsentient. Okay. And clairsentient means I feel, I sense, I work from third eye, the crown, the solar plexus. I'm pulling in, I sense. So I realized that that was my calling, that I was here to help people as best I could, whether that be through counseling or whether it was just by giving them a reading. And I think to hone your point about everybody, I believe that everybody is psychic. It's just how, if they wish to tune into it or not, or if they want to hone it properly. Because some people can go in a room and go, oh, I can feel something, or they know who's going to call, or what someone's going to say to you. Right. So I think we all have the gift, but it's whether or not we decide to hone it.
Right. Oh, well, that makes a lot of sense, because, and you kind of wonder, some things have got to be psychological as opposed to spiritual. Absolutely. Where does your body get used to, I don't know how many times my phone rings and I go, I know who that is. And I look and it's who I think it is. Yeah. And so is that psychic? I don't know. Or you just learn to, and then you do the math and you go, well, I only really have about 6 or 7 people that ever call me with any regularity. So it's got to be that person, or it's the timing, or it's the whatever. Yeah. So I get that part of it. But there are things that I know that you can hone in on. There are things with you and me when we talk. There are sometimes we don't talk for a long time. Mm-hmm. And then there'll be something like, say, with you that is an emotional distress, and you'll call, and I'll look and I'll see your name and I'll go, something's up with Wendy, and or vice versa. You've experienced that with me as well. And so there has to be, that little bit of extra sense that's going on.
I agree.
Now, you honed your skills from the time you were 25. You really started doing this. So you've only been in this for a couple of years. So you're welcome. That one was a freebie. And so, but for the years that you've been doing this, you get a clientele, you get to talk to an awful lot of people. And how do you feel the things you feel? And I'll qualify that question a little bit. When I read tarot, I'm not really looking to read people psychically. I use the cards as a positive crutch. I can use the cards and it spells it out, and I don't have to worry about thinking about it. Mm-hmm. But there are times I'll throw a card down and I'll see the message in the cards in a split second before you even start reading them all. And you're like, oh my God, I know exactly what this is. And maybe it's the empath in you just sucks that right out of you. And you're like buried in this reading. And if you're not careful, you get so emotionally invested in that reading that it can tear you apart sometimes. I would do series of readings at these events that I used to go to with the Ghost Hunters. And after 10 of those in a row, I'd have to step outside and go, I need a break, because I had to go reground myself. Now, what do you do when that happens? Do you get that sometimes? You have to separate yourself so you can read properly. But if it sucks you in, all of a sudden you're reading emotively on top of psychically. And how do you experience that? And when you do, how do you deal with that?
I think I'm quite lucky, because where I trained as a counselor, I heard some horror stories in my time. And one thing you learn as being a therapist, you don't really show a reaction as much. You're there to support the client, and that they know that you're there supporting them. But you have to not, you feel that moment with them, but you don't perhaps show it as much. So I think that probably helped when I started doing my readings, to help, if I could help someone. I think for me, I've had a few clients, just come to see me to say, look, can you help me? I need a bit of help here. And there's been a few horror stories I've heard, after I've done the reading, because I always say, please don't tell me anything before you come and see me. I don't want to know anything. If I can help you, that's great. and I always cut the link after I've done one reading. If I'm doing a one-to-one, I'll cut the link. I'll have a drink of water or whatever. I'll get up and walk around, and then I'll come back. Years ago, I remember doing a psychic fair. They're not so much popular here anymore, but there's a few around now. But there's a lot of bitchiness in the whole psychic field, and I never wanted to be a part of that. Like, a lot of people like to go on platform and they like to, you know, the unique this or the famous that never ever appealed to me. I was always one-to-one. If I can help someone, I prefer to do one-to-one. But on the odd time that I was persuaded to do a psychic fair, I hated it, because although I loved talking to people and I loved helping them, I absolutely couldn't stand the stabbing in the back, and you can feel that energy when you're working. So yes, you cut the link. You definitely cut the link. Go for a drink of water, like you say. Go for a walk. There have been places I've gone to, and I've worked with certain people that, you know, sit on the other side of the fence.
Yeah,
and you can feel it very much from them, and you're kind of like, ooh, I can feel where you're coming from, and it's not the same side as me. But it, you know, at the end of the day, all you do is protect yourself, ground yourself as much as possible. You know, like center yourself, you know, cleanse all your chakras, ground yourself, you know, just get your energy back, you know, and stuff. And literally, the ones that are very emotional and very difficult, yeah, you need to have a break afterwards.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you at some point to draw a couple cards for me or some psychic stuff before we're done with this show, if you're okay with that. And I'm an open book. I don't care what you see, you spill it. If you say, oh God, you're a turd, this card says, and I'll go, well, yeah. But how do you deal with that when you do a reading for somebody? I always tell people, I don't pull any punches. I'm just going to tell you what the cards say. If it says you're a fucking idiot, I'll share that with you. If it says you're a wonderful person, I'll share that with you. If it says you're in an affair with somebody else, you better be prepared to hear that, because it'll probably show it. But I've had times where I've had cards, you know, okay, you'll remember this. This is just before I met Rainey, and I had broken up with a girlfriend of a few years. And it was an icky breakup thing. And she called me. I may have told you this at the time. This is a long time ago. That she called me and wanted a reading. Can you do a reading for me? And I'm like, inside, I'm like, are you fucking crazy? You know, but I'm like, oh, well, of course I can do a reading for you. And, you know, I put on the affectation, and I had to close out everything I was feeling about that relationship and how nasty it was, and not wonder, why is she calling me for a reading? And, you know, you throw the cards, you want to go, oh, there's the bitch card. Oh, there's another bitch card. Oh, look, that's crossed with the C word card. You know, I didn't do that, you know. And I had to close it off. And I remember the reading was not in my favor, but I wasn't reading for me. Yeah. I had to close off everything I was feeling about her, and then I felt it afterwards. Then I could deal with it. Do you run into that often, where you have to totally close off what you know about somebody when you read them?
I rarely read for people that, you know, if my best friend in that lot, is very difficult, because I know
but you know them.
Yeah. You know. The first thing I want to say, just to come back on something you said, you cannot lie to a clairvoyant or a psychic. You can try, but we know. And I've had people and boyfriends lie to my face, and I know they're lying. Every ounce of me is knowing they're lying, and you're like, well, if I give you enough rope, you'll hang yourself.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's very hard. And I actually had a very personal experience in my life. I was married at the time, and my husband had issues, and I was in bed and I was fast asleep, and I heard my nan's voice come through, sharp as that. Wendy, get up now. And she kept saying, I could hear her calling me, couldn't see anything. And I was, when they were coming around from your sleep and you feel like someone's calling you. And she was like, get up. And I got up and I was like, okay, I'm up. And I went out, and obviously I discovered some stuff. And if I hadn't had that, I wouldn't have known. So I think that you get that sixth sense for sure that someone is either, bullshitting you.
Mm-hmm.
Or if they're being unfaithful, that's another one.
Oh,
you know, and you're actually looking at them going, you're trying to convince me of this, right? And you do know who I am. But go back to your question, if I was going to read for you, I would read the tarot, because I know the tarot inside out. I always ask the tarot to show me what is needed for that person at that moment. What do they need? If, for instance, my best friend asks me, Wendy, can you pull a few cards? I'll say, I'll pull a few cards and I'll tell you what the tarot means that I've pulled. But I won't do a reading like I would do for someone who perhaps come to see me for help, because I'd rather not know anything at all. I
just did a reading the other day for a good old friend of mine who I know very well. And we're very close friends. And I always, face those with a bit of caution, because I know them so well, because I don't want to take what I know about that person and subconsciously put it into what I'm reading. And so, ow, cat, don't. Sorry about that little familial interlude there. My new
I
kitty.
could say something very funny like, are you being attacked by your pussy? But that wouldn't sound too good.
Oh, stop. Oh, behave.
Oh, behave.
But yeah, she was just trying to crawl up my leg with her claws.
Well, as you do. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, as pussies do. So
you speak for yourself, love. You speak for yourself.
That's right.
Yeah, okay. My pussy's behaving today.
Well, that's a good thing. Oh, behave.
No, you see, now they can see the friendship banter between us.
There it is. And now I've clouded you for being able to read me.
Not at all. Carry on.
So carry on. Where was I? Before the cat clawed my leg. That was for a purpose. You got to think everything in life happens for a reason.
Everything.
I don't know why he did that.
Something I very much believe is like Carl Jung would say, like, if there's no such thing as coincidence.
Yeah.
You do not. I'm a personal believer that you do not meet anyone in this lifetime without a reason. They're there to come into your life and be part of your life for a reason. Whether that's as an enemy, as a work colleague, a partner, a lover. And sometimes we meet people, and you've probably experienced it yourself, Scotty. We meet people and we are so drawn to them like a magnet. Yes. We do not know why. It's like you can't stop, you can't eat, you can't think. You are thinking of this person, and it's because your energies are drawn together, and there is obviously that soul spiritual connection. And other people you can meet and you're like, oh God, I just don't even know them, and I just have the EBs looking at them.
Right.
And I think it's very good to listen to your gut instinct. And I remember seeing that post saying that gut instinct is guardian angels. And my point is, when I have a reading, I always say to someone, don't listen to your head or heart. They will argue. Yes. Listen to your gut instinct. It's never really wrong.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to, that is a very good approach. I don't like, I'll just leave it at that. Your head and your heart, they will argue with you. They will argue with each other, and they're not always right. It's interesting you talked about those, and I'm only bringing this up because there are a lot of people, as a psychic reader, as a tarot reader, there's only a couple of different questions out there. And just everybody's got their own little personal twist on those same 2 or 3 questions. And you brought up the thing about love and unrequited love and things like that. Last night on the show, I had read this poem I want to get your reaction to this, only because it's in my head. This is something I do on the radio show. I do when I'm talking to people. If something comes into my head and it's not like totally dirty or untoward or something, I'll usually say, I think I'm meant to talk about, don't laugh at me. I think I'm meant to talk about this because it's in my head. Yeah. And this poem of William Butler Yeats came into my head as you were mentioning that, because we just talked about it last night. And you may have heard this. It's been done in song several times, but the Song of Wandering Angus. And we were talking about the Celtic gods and Celtic mythology last night, and talking about Angus Og and how he had dreamt of this woman, and he fell in love with this woman, and he sent people out and searched for years and years for this woman. And the poem goes like this, and of course Yeats had a lot of other meaning in it, but he said, I went out to the hazel wood because a fire was in my head, and cut and peeled a hazel wand, and hooked a berry to a thread. And when white moths were on the wing and moth-like stars were flickering out, I dropped the berry in a stream and caught a little silver trout. When I had laid it on the floor, I went to blow the fire aflame, but something rustled on the floor and someone called me by my name. It had become a glimmering girl with apple blossom in her hair, who called me by my name and ran and faded through the brightening air. Though I am old with wandering through hollow lands and hilly lands, I will find out where she is gone and kiss her lips and take her hands, and walk among long dappled grass and pluck till time and times are done, the silver apples of the moon, the golden apples of the sun. And I don't know why, I don't know what the application might be for our conversation, but you mentioned that kind of thing, that people look for those. They look for those answers. They look for the unrequited things. Many times it's the grass that's just greener. It's seemingly on the other side of the fence, but it's always on the other side of the fence. And so here you've got this poem, and Yeats wrote a lot of code into his poetry because he was a firm believer in the fairy realm and the fae and the mystical, the elemental, and so on. I think the way to segue this in, because that came to my mind, I had to read that poem. What is your experience with that? It talks about the silver trout, that the trout used to speak to you from the stream. It was a psychic connection, a spiritual fae connection. Have you had any experience with the fae, the elementals, what you would call not just spirit guides, not just ghosts of dead people gone on, but that spirit realm that's alive and well and pulsing in and out of reality? Do you have your own experiences with that?
Well, it is England, darling. We're all about the mystical and magical, right, and going back to the Druids and etc. I've always been drawn to that side of things. I studied the craft and wanted to learn more about white magic. Mm-hmm. I was drawn to that. But I think, England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, all that area, they've all got the stories of the little people and also of
the wee folk.
The wee folk, they're mystical, magical. And I've just discovered I have a lot more Scottish blood in me than which I actually didn't know. So I'm kind of drawn to that. But I think also we're all energy. We're all connected to each other. There's a very fine line, we're all connected to each other. And I think we tap into that. Like, for instance, Mark talks, like, when he goes to Avebury and places like Newbury and places like that, he's tapping into the...
Man, I'd love to join him on that.
Yeah, he's tapping into the energy from there. And I think he'd probably love you to be there. I would say that some of it is I think you've got to take some of it with a pinch of salt, but I also think some of it is actually got its history based in something.
Sure.
There's definitely something out there. And I believe to this day, you know, they walk amongst us. They are amongst us. What they are and who they are two different things. For me, I mean, elementals, as you call them, yeah, I've had my experience of that. Some nice, some not so.
Really?
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on any of that? I'd love to hear, just in generalities. You don't have to give away anything, but I'm curious to know.
Secrets, darling.
Yeah, let's hear your secrets. Now, the secrets of Wendy Robertson.
Darling, we could be here all day. That's a whole new show.
that would be like a show entitled "The Skeletons in Scotty's Closet" broadcast.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because, you know, when you are psychic, clairvoyant, or whatever like that, and you're talking about love and unrequited love as well, which I wanted to come back to that point. 99.9% of people that want a reading, it is to do with a relationship of some kind, right? Because love makes the world go round. John Lennon said love is the answer, and I know that for sure, and he was right, because it's all about love, and we're all just trying to desperately find it in this short lifetime that we have. And also sometimes it's about work and money and things like that, but predominantly it's love. And when you fall in love with someone, your energies blend with them, so you become one in you know, you're one. And if you love someone that doesn't love you, and you love them desperately, you're kind of like you're without a paddle, you're a ship without an anchor, and you're just like, it's a terrible feeling. And I do know people right now in that situation. So I think we all look to things, whether they are white magic, or whether it's religion, or whether it's faith, or whether it's the fae, whether it's magical. We are all looking for something that makes us feel alive.
Yes.
And, you know, my mum was a great believer in, and still is, in the little people and guides and helpers and guardian angels and stuff like that. And I still am. And it's one of the things that there is actually a downside to being psychic. Some people don't want to date us. Oh yeah? No. So
now, have you run into that personally, where somebody doesn't want to date you because you're psychic?
Yes.
Now, is it because you revealed something to that person? Well, I know what you're thinking. And I know that's not how psychic energy always works. But were they just afraid of you getting into their head, or what?
I think you're right. I think there is an element of, will she be able to read my mind? Will she know what I'm thinking? Well, can I get away with anything? No. Can I get away with anything? And also, I think the other one is as well, it scares them. It scares them because what if I'm somewhere with them and I see something or I feel something, and they you know, they don't want to hear it, they don't want to see it. And you know, where I live, there's been episodes here where people have been with me and they've gone, oh my God. So it is not an easy life to live as a clairvoyant. And I do sometimes, you know, when dating, you when you meet someone, you're kind of like, do I really want to tell you what I do? Because a lot of people just kind of go, or they go, really? Sure. Oh my God.
Read me now. Read me.
I'm
ready.
They go like, read my hand. I'm interested in it. And you're like, it doesn't work like that. You know, I don't just switch it on. I have to open up and all that, because I have to keep myself closed. Because if not, I'm like a sponge. I would walk outside and everybody walking past me, I'd be absorbing and picking up their stuff.
I was going to ask you about that. I had a psychic that I spoke to many years ago. A man had shot my mother back in '99, her estranged husband. And she lived, of course, but he was on the run for a long time. We were looking for him. And he had put out threats that he was going to come to my home and kill me and my wife at the time. All of this. And so I had spoken to a psychic about finding him. And she could, I don't know what they call that gift, but she could see. We weren't talking like this. She couldn't, it wasn't, the internet wasn't then what it is now. But we were talking on the telephone, and She could see my house. She could see that I was standing on a Persian rug on a wood floor.
Remote viewing.
Remote viewing. And but she said, as we got to talking a little bit, she said, it's gotten to the point in my life, she said, that this is a great gift, but it's a curse sometimes. She said, I can't go out in public. She said, I have a tough time. She said, the worst thing for me to do ever is to ride a train or fly on a plane where you're enclosed with all these people. She said, I cannot sometimes block out all the things that I'm hearing and seeing. And she said, it's devastating sometimes. So do you ever experience it?
Up to 1952 or 56, something between 52 and 56, I can't remember the exact year, witchcraft was still punishable. It was still a crime.
Right. That's right.
And, if you were a witch, it was kind of
found a witch, may we burn her?
Well, it's really weird because obviously the notice that all witches were burned. They weren't. In England, they were drowned or they were hung. It was Scotland where they burnt them. And so if you were Scottish, you were shut out of luck, really. Yeah. Which is probably where my heritage comes from. It's like, but yes, no, you do. Absolutely. It is a curse at times because you're picking up things you don't want to pick. I mean, for instance, I knew when someone was cheating on me, and I really wished I didn't know. I really didn't want to know. And it's you actually kid yourself. It's not real. It's like, no, it's fine. It's not. It's just shut up. Go away. You can't switch it off. But there are times that you do. But sometimes it is if I go into somewhere, and what I tend to do now is I don't really mention it a lot unless I'm with people that really appreciate it.
I want to ask you a question. I'm going to grab something off my bookshelf here. I've got these dowsing rods.
Oh yeah, Mark.
That John Ward had made for me in Egypt.
Yeah.
And I once asked a question. Now let me ask you this: as a psychic, when you ask a question, can you sometimes put your own fears, your own suspicions, your own whatever into something, your own opinions into things? Because I had asked about somebody that I trusted implicitly, and I had the rods, and when they cross, it's usually a yes. When they part, it's usually a no. And I had asked, did this person have an affair? They went like that almost abruptly. And I went, wait, well, hold on there. Was that me? I said, let me ask that again. And I did it again. And I took him down and I said, that must be me putting what my suspicions were about that person into that reading. And so I said, let's put those down. We'll go about this another way. But I even picked it up a few days later and I asked again, did that person, and I didn't even get the question out. And it was like, okay, I'm not doing that because it's like, I would look at these right now. And if this is supposed to work, am I talking to Wendy right now? And okay, I'm not holding them right now. I haven't picked them up.
But it's not that you have to be honed in.
You have to be. See, there you go.
Yeah, when you start using stuff like that, any tool.
Wendy over there. Yeah. So there it is. Yeah. They cross
Mark has the rods. He loves. It's going to sound so bad. Mark loves his rods.
I love my rods.
But it's like I use the pendulum. I tend to use the pendulum as well, and I test it in all lots of ways to get an answer. I do.
You test it. It's like I say. Is Wendy wearing? Here I could go. Is Wendy wearing a red jacket today? See right now it's not doing anything. Am I speaking with Wendy over there in England? And it starts to cross right away. It's doing that. So, and that's just a quirky little test I'm putting it to you. But
sometimes
you have to be in the mode.
Sometimes they won't answer you because I've asked them a question and they won't move. Or they'll move back and forth. And it's like, there's a reason they don't answer sometimes.
That's right. Sometimes they won't answer. Sometimes you can lay cards out. And if you're trying to read someone else out there, and now I haven't done this in a long, long time. It's maybe 15 years ago or more that I tried to read somebody else. but I didn't have their permission to read them. And so I kept getting weird stuff and things like that. They'll shut you down. They'll go, you don't have, it's not your business. No matter how much you think it is, it's not your business.
And also it's very, very true when you say be prepared. Are you ready to hear the answer? Because I myself, when I was married, and I just recently got married at the time, I remember coming to see a medium here in the UK, and I'd seen one in Canada, and they kind of told me lots of information, which was very interesting. And then when I came over here, my sister was like, you got to go and see this guy, he's amazing. So I was like, okay. And I took my ring off. I took my ring off so it wasn't on my finger. And because I was recently married, there was no imprint or anything like that.
Right.
So, and his name was Ivan Lee. He's pretty well known. He's a good, friend of mine. He's a lovely guy. And I remember he said something to me, and he put up some information, and I was like, how the hell does he know that? How the hell does he know? And he said to me, he knew who I should have married and who I didn't marry. And he said to me, and at the time when he told me, I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to believe it. He said, enjoy it while it lasts. You've just had a ring put on. And he said, enjoy it while it lasts. There's another one to go on after that. And I looked at him and I said,
wow.
He said, you know exactly what I mean. He said, you're married. He said, you might be married right now. Enjoy it while it lasts. There's another one to come on.
Wow.
6.5 years later, it came in. And a lot of other things he personally told me came to pass. And I didn't want to hear that. And I blocked that out. Even as a clairvoyant medium myself, I blocked it out. I didn't want to hear it until one day it was slapped me in the face. So now I think it's very good to have a very healthy pinch of salt.
Yeah.
But I think it's also very healthy to have very much an open mind.
Yes, I agree. You have to be skeptical to a certain point of everything. Yes. You have to ask the questions.
But we do know.
Mulder used to say, trust no one.
We do know when someone is BSing, though. We really do.
Yeah.
You just know. You're listening to them and you're like, yeah, no, that's not working. And
I hope you've never caught me BSing. I don't think
you've
I've ever
always been very open, Scotty. And
I'm a pretty open guy. And speaking of that, are you up for throwing a couple of cards?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like,
let's do it before the end of the show.
I've got the cards here. Like, so if I can help, is there a particular area you want me to look at, or just whatever?
Nope. Just in general, whatever you get, whatever you think, or the cards think is the. I'm going to throw the cards now. What the cards say, I have no control over.
It's interesting because when people have a reading, I'm a clairsentient. Sometimes spirit will come through and they'll give a message. Sometimes they don't. I can't just go up and go, which you shouldn't do. Is there anybody there? You should never ask that. You should never use a Ouija board and ask that, or any other tool and ask that, because you're going to pull anyone in.
Yeah.
And you should always can I have any information and guidance for Scotty? When you're pulling.
And when what?
When you're pulling the cards, you ask them exactly.
That's right. I usually, when I do a reading for somebody, I always tell them, don't tell me what's on I don't want to know anything about what your question is, because I don't want that to interfere with what I'm getting. But sometimes they let me know, I've come to have a reading to find out about my husband. And I'm like, and sometimes you can go to the tarot with a question, and the spirit guides will go, that's a great question, but that's not what we're going to tell you. We got this thing over here we got to talk to you about. So, and
sometimes they give you information that you're like, none of this makes sense. I don't know what this means. And then about a week or a day or something later, or months down the line, you go, oh my God, do you remember that?
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to shuffle.
Okay.
And I'm going to ask in my head for you. And when you're ready, tell me when to stop, okay?
Okay. Okay, that looks pretty good.
Right, I'm going to pick 3 piles, 1, 2, and 3. Which one do you want? 1, 2, or 3?
Say that. How am I supposed to choose here?
I've got 3 piles in front of me because I've cut the tarot in 3.
Okay.
What pack would you like? 1, 2, or 3?
Let's go in the middle. Give me 2.
And which one next?
1.
And the reason I ask that is because you're directing your future.
Okay.
Even though I cut them, you're choosing.
So, I got that. And by the way, folks, we're doing this demonstration, so you know what Wendy is her capabilities are, and maybe you can give her a call after this show sometime. There you go.
No pressure. I mean, I'm just picking out a few for you. So,
okay.
Obviously, I know you well, so I'm not going.
You know me very well, so
intimately, darling, intimately.
Intimately, darling.
So, one of the cards you've picked is the Chariot. And for me, when I get the Chariot, it's always about obstacles to overcome or coming over obstacles. And it's almost like you're very much very strong in your faith and belief about what you're doing. And there's something, whether this be in your work life or in your personal life, there is something that you're going to get an obstacle, like a bump in the road, but you're taking the reins yourself and you are making it happen. It's almost like, taking control of the situation and go, this is in my control. I'm not going to be bulldozed by anyone else or by other people. I'm going to make this decision. But feeling pulled in 2 directions, feeling pulled as in, I want to make this decision, but I'm weighing up this and I'm weighing up that. So this shows that there's whatever there is a situation either going on or to come. And I feel this is an emotional situation because you have the Ace of Wands there as well, which would show quite a lot of, and I love this card because it can be quite a lot of sexual energy and stuff like that. Wow. But it shows me that at the moment, your emotional side of your life is quite prominent in your life. You're a very open man. You have the Knight of Cups. You're very open. Your heart is on your sleeve. You have no problem telling people or telling someone you love exactly how you feel about them. And it's like you're always offering to somebody, and I feel that there's been a lot of emotional stuff, or there is a lot of emotional stuff going on around you, whether it's in the home, whether it's somebody there's a lot of emotional stuff. And also their health is concerned. And that's something that we're really not supposed to go into as mediums, is health and finance. But I will say here, it's somebody who's crossing the bridge, moving from health problems. It's almost like you're looking at yourself in your life now and going, I'm sitting back looking at my role in a completely different way. I'm the father, I'm the husband, I'm the provider, whatever you want to do. Mm-hmm. You are sitting back and you are a man that, when I look at the 10 of Pentacles here, it shows me a respected man. And sometimes I don't think they realize how much they are respected, because, it's like people are coming to you for help. People are coming to you for guidance. They're listening to what you say. You make a difference to them. And this is something that you need in yourself. You need to know that you make a difference. You need to have a purpose. And it's like, this is something that's going to happen in the next, whether this be 3 weeks, 3 months or whatever, because I normally don't go further than that. It's that people are going to be coming to you and saying, look, what do you think about this? What's your take on it? Can I have your guidance? Because I feel that your life needs to change in lots of ways. I know, obviously I'm aware that you've moved recently, but I feel that you have the Wheel of Fortune, and with the Wheel of Fortune card, it means there are changes coming and there's nothing you can do about it, and they're going to be fast and swift. And it can feel like the rug is being pulled out from underneath you. And you also have 1, 2, 3. We have the 4 of Cups here. When I look at all these cards, and I have pulled out 7 to begin with, and I try and summarize them, and I try and add and feed it back to you. Here shows me a gentleman with his heart on his sleeve, a very emotional gentleman who basically wants a lot of love, gives a lot of love, and also likes to be seen as the chivalrous gentleman as well, likes to be seen very old school. The Knight of Cups is somebody who's also very young in spirit, very passionate about what he does and what he believes in. Somebody who's been through a lot of problems and gone over that bridge, with the 6 of Swords, like you've been through an emotional time, or there's emotional time still going on, but you are you're doing it. You're getting over the bridge. You've also shows me here that you're doing a lot of welling up and thinking about things. You are welling up in your mind, weighing up, shall I say. Shall I do this? Shall I do that? And that's where the Chariot comes in. It still feels like in your mind, in your life, there is a situation where you're pulled in two ways about what to do. The Wheel of Fortune says, if you don't make a decision, if you don't sort that out, we're going to do it for you, because that's what the universe does. If we don't make a decision, if we procrastinate too much, they'll just make it happen.
That's like not doing your taxes on time and the government figuring your taxes out for you all wrong.
I mean, with the Ace of Wands, I'll have to tell you more about that off camera, because for me that's a very phallic card. It's quite it's quite a lot more. But it's like, just to give you a gauge on some of that, it's like reading the tarot is incredibly personal. There's said
yes,
you can say it.
I always say that the tarot is invasive, so you better be prepared for invasiveness if you ask a question of somebody that's reading for you.
And I think that we're very respectful. Like, I am not allowed to talk about health and money, and it's confidential. I will not break confidentiality unless I'm given.
Well, I'll keep you on the line when we end the show. We've got to be done in just a few minutes here, sadly, but we can talk a little bit more. And let's see what that stuff is all about. You know, that always makes you a little nervous when you're on this end of it. I read for people all the time, but I'm rarely on this end of a reading. So
like, for instance, if you just started dating someone, you may not want to have a tarot reading, just in case. They go, no, what are you dating him for? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The spirits are telling you something here. So, well, all right. Well, let's leave it at that. We'll talk a little bit when we're done with the show here. We got to wrap this up in a couple of minutes. And so tell people where they can find you. Because I know you do readings. You do readings online. You do over in your neck of the...
I don't do as many now as I used to. But I still read for people at times. And if I feel that someone really needs help, I will read for them. But, obviously they can find me through the wonders of Instagram and Facebook.
Sure.
And they can also look on the Strangely Us podcast, which we didn't get a chance to chat about, but and find me through there.
All right. Well, Wendy, it's been lovely having you here today. And I'm so glad we could do this. We got to do this more often. We're talking about trying to do something at least once a week where we can do some live things too. Yeah. Maybe we'll just schedule a different time so it works for you. And that's all we got, folks. So, Wendy, I'm going to put you out of the studio, but stay there because I'm going to bring you back in. We're going to end the show for the listeners. Thanks for being here. All right. All right, folks, that was Wendy Robertson. And you know what? We got to get out of here for the radio audience. Stick around if you want to come over into the captain's cabin, which will be live tonight after this recording is done. So thanks for being here. And all of you over in radio, live long and prosper.
Join us every weeknight at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern. The Intrepid Radio Program, a Scotty Roberts Productions broadcast.
Are you looking for a really awesome and amazing graphic designer? How about an illustrator or a photographer? This is Rainey Roberts, and I wanted to tell you how you can get my designer, illustrator husband, Scotty Roberts, to work for you on your project. Do you have an awesome self-published book but no cover, or even worse, a cover that really sucks? Do you need a kick-ass logo for your company or some f***ing awesome graphic designs for your ads or website? Then get in touch with my husband for the best f***ing awesome kick-ass design and illustration. He knows his stuff and he's been at this for more years than I've been alive. Go to ScottAllenRoberts.com. That's Scott with 2 T's, ALANROBERTS.com to take a look at his online portfolio of work, or call 651-468-8115. Now go out and kick some ass with some kick-ass graphic design.
Hire my dad so he can take me to Disneyland.
Well, hey, folks, welcome to the Captain's Cabin. I hope you enjoyed that show, even though the interview itself, the conversation is more like it, was all pre-recorded earlier today. We had to do that mostly for Wendy's schedule and the middle of the night stuff. She just doesn't do very well. And so it was good having her on. And what we want to do, this was really a way to kind of introduce something that we want to try to do at least weekly with her friend Mark, who she does some other podcasting with, and me, and to be able to talk about some of these things. It was a way to kind of introduce Wendy to you all, not to cover every base, certainly, and certainly not as in-depth as we could have done with a 2-hour documentary. But it was enjoyable. It was fun. She had a good time. And I got to put on my glasses. My eyes are particularly fuzzy tonight. So welcome to everybody that's here, sticking around for the Captain's Cabin. It's good to have you. I got to wear my old man bifocals to see the chat room right now. So Matthew Sainsbury, good to see you. Michelle Canham-Free, good to see you as well. And, of course, everybody, we go down the Nicole McClellan. Heard beeps as well. Yes, you did. That was only in the commercial, though, because Rainey likes to use some colorful language. And I said, you don't have to hide it for the commercial. And so she didn't. And let's see. Niall, good to have you here. Love your comments, even though I disagree with a hell of a lot of what you say. That's okay. I'm glad you're there. And a Grumpy Stack, good to see you. Despite the normal stuff you said. That's the last thing you said. I'm not even sure what I missed there. That was a cool show, despite the normal stuff, if that's what you were saying. Scott Allen, I think I'm going to reach out to her to see if she's available to do a reading for me. You should. I can't speak for her schedule and how often she's doing things. She just kind of said, even in tonight's show, that she has stepped it back just a little bit, but mostly because this last year, she's had a rough go and with health issues. Nothing life-threatening so far as we know, but she hasn't felt good a lot this year. So anyway, there's that. But yeah, go ahead and reach out to her. That's why I asked her. The best way to get hold of her, just look up Wendy Robertson over on Facebook, and you'll recognize her and by her picture. And you can also look her up on Instagram under @WendyRob, R-O-B. So that'd be a good thing to do, Scott. Let's see. Who else is in here? Pearson Castile was here, or is here. Good to see you, brother. And Leslie Holker, good to see you. You're saying goodnight already. So won't be able to talk to you much unless you tune back in to the cabin here. And Paige Rockwell is here. You always tell me how to say your name, and I never say your last name, hyphenated last name, because I always screw it up. Rockwell Sway, I think you said. Sway. I think I have that right. Let's see. I see Niall Parkinson. This was one big flirt fest. No, it wasn't. There, I've countered you. You've never seen us flirt. So, Steve Clark, it was good to have you here. You had to step out of the chat room and just listen. I don't know if you're still listening out there. Good to have you here tonight. And I'm just going through and saying hi to everybody. So that was here. And those of you who are not in the chat room, you can come on over. This is the live portion. Dave Potter was here, Uncle Dave. If you're there and you want to call in, Dave, please do so. Wendy is just great, Dave says. Yes, she is. And everybody who knows her knows it. So this is just an in brief introduction to her. And I will say something. Niall said I talked more than her. I talk more than most of my guests. And when I'm the interviewee in a show, I'm always told I talk more than any other people that they interview, and they like it because they can sit back and not have to think of things to ask or say. So you guys all know me. You put a nickel in me, I'll talk for 4 hours. Wendy and I talk an awful lot. And sometimes, and it was maybe a little easy to lapse into the way we converse as opposed to me conducting a professional interview of her. And so Wendy would tell me if she felt that she was not getting her point across or being overtalked. So, and there is a professional side of this, if you will, that it's like, now I'm no Rush Limbaugh, the late Rush Limbaugh. I'm no Rush Limbaugh. I don't have an audience like he had. But as he said, he says, I don't have guests, and when I do, they're here for one purpose, to make me, your host, look better. And you laugh about that. And but yeah, that's pretty much it. That's what Rush did. He says, when I have a guest and I want to promote my guest and I want my guest to look good. But basically, this show is my show. And if I talk a little more than my guest, or a 68-32 or a 70-30 or a 55-45.
I don't think that you were talking that much.
I didn't think I did either. I like to set context for some of my question. That's all that was. And flirtatiousness? Nah, that happened before the show.
Wendy's just naturally flirtatious, though. Every time I talk with her, she's flirty.
And she is.
And she brings the flirtiness out in me.
Niall says, to clarify, love the show, love the man, love our differences, but about all love that we can agree to disagree. Absolutely. That's okay. I love you well enough to disagree with you. And if I didn't like you, I would have probably just banned you from the chat and go, oh, I don't like what this guy's saying. Ban, bye. But I appreciate your input, Niall. I do. I don't always agree with it, but that's okay. I don't have to. And you don't have to agree with mine. So I don't always agree with Dave. Shh. Oh, he's in the room. Sorry.
You don't have to agree with me.
And we don't always
beat my opinion into you.
Dave and I are pretty much, we have different personalities, but we're of like mind on a lot of things. And well, sort of. Maybe 68-32. So what did Paige say? Scotty, awesome interview. Thank you, Paige. I'm glad to see you here. It's nice to have you here. Good to see you too, Michelle Kenham Freedom. Good to have you. People seem off today, she said.
Are we off?
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 Off.
Off in what way?
I don't know.
Crooked?
Crooked, maybe. What's the Gaelic Storms song? It's not. One More Day Above the Roses. I was thinking with the word off and cough and all of that. And It's a chorus saying that. One more day above the roses. What a great song. It's a smart-assy song.
Aren't all Gaelic songs smart-assy
roses, songs? Gaelic storm. I'm trying to look for the lyrics of this. Come on. Do I have to type in the word lyric? Lyrics. One more day above the roses. It starts out, I'm done with all you, with you begrudgers, you pushers and you shovers, the scurrying, the worrying, I'm going to have some fun. Well, I was born very young. I grew up in me cradle. Chances are that when I die, it'll be of something fatal. So if you see me running, keep up by my side. That hurricane's coming, there ain't no place to hide. Get your own life, this one's mine. Moin, as he says. Moin. And stuff it where the sun don't shine. I'm done with you begrudgers, you pushers and you shovers. The scurrying, the worrying, I'm going to have some fun. So give it over, take a break, shut your hole, you're causing my poor heart to break. Oh, to all you saints and sinners, you losers and you winners, here's to one more day above the roses. All that schmoozing and the boozing will catch up with you, they say. At least that's what them old ones, they told me every day. So I quit just like they said, stopped everything that's bad. 'Twas the worst 20 minutes that I've ever had. It's not the cough that carries you off. It's the coffin they carry you off in. I'm done with all the snitching, the bawling and the bitching, the striving and conniving. I'm heading for the pub. So give it over, take a break, shut your hole. You're causing my poor heart to break. To all you saints and sinners, you losers and you winners, here's to one more day above the roses. Work like you don't need money, don't know how much things cost. Love like you've never been hurt, love like you've never lost. Dance like no one's watching as often as you can. And when you drink like you're a true blood Irishman. Live every day like it's your last. They're going by way too fast. You langers and you loons, you bankers and buffoons, the liars, the pariahs, you can keep the bloody lot. So give it over, take a break, shut your hole. You're causing my poor heart to ache. To all you saints and sinners, you losers and you winners, here's to one more day above the roses. And
the Irish, such a way with words.
Yeah, and it's they play that with the I can't even
kind of a reel.
So it's a reel, yes. There you go. But let's see. Mern M, love it. Thank you, Mern. I don't know I've ever met you before, unless you're here under a different name than I've seen you before. It's great to have you here for the first time.
Mern.
Glad you made it in. I'm glad you love it. Oh, there's Wendy. Wendy is awake. I had fun, Scotty. David, you old flirt. It's always fun.
Hi, Wendy.
There she is. So, folks, you can say to Wendy right there, Scott Allen. If you're still in the room, Wendy is now in the room. So if you wanted to connect with her.
She must be on the Facebook one.
Yeah.
I don't see her on the YouTube.
Wendy, do you believe I talked over you today? If I did, sorry about that. Niall perceived me as talking over you way too much. I think he just wanted to hear more of you. That was subtle, Niall. He just wanted to hear more Wendy. So there's Scott Allen. Scott Allen, Wendy, Scott Allen. He's looking to make a connect with you. So, Mern, I have to tell you, I don't know who you are by your moniker. So you don't have to tell me in public if you want to keep it that way. I'm not recognized. You said, thanks, nice to see you again. Sorry about that. If you came in under that moniker before, it's gone from my head. Captain's Cabin is always fun. So Scott Allen says, I switched over here now from YouTube. You're over in Facebook now. Oh, Wendy's over in Facebook too. She's not in the YouTube chat.
I jumped over there quickly to chat.
Matthew Sainsbury says, "Hi, Wendy. You're in the chat. I found your talk with Scotty fascinating. Thanks." Pearson Castile is calling in. Pearson, how you doing, brother?
Hey, Scotty. I'm doing all right. It's been a very challenging.
Ooh, we've got a wicked connection. Let's see if I can.
Oh, it's evil.
If I can.
It's pure evil.
It's pure. It's not evil. It's evil.
We still staticky?
Yeah, it's all staticky, dude.
Oh, Wendy's going off to sleep again.
Oh,
she says, "It's always nice to wake up to two of my gorgeous friends, but back off to sleep in a moment." I'm here. Who else is here? That's a gorgeous friend.
I am.
Oh, she's talking about you, Dave.
Yeah, I knew that.
Brother Niall. How you doing, man?
Great. I enjoyed the show, as usual.
Thank you.
Have to start off with an apology.
Which is, you don't have to apologize about nothing.
Which is usually my case.
Not nobody, not know how.
Okay, it's just...
Never apologize. It's a sign of weakness.
That's right.
John Wayne.
That's what my wife tells me.
It was a very interesting interview that you did with Wendy.
Dave, here's
Robertson.
a comment from Wendy for you.
I have to say, there's two beards. Well, your beard is more
mine's more
than mine.
You've got a beard. Dave's got a beard. I'm chin whiskers.
You have whiskers. I have a beard. He has like total Gandalf material.
Yeah, he's gone.
Well, and I've got the long hair to go with it. So
he does. A wizard is neither early nor late.
Late. He
arrives
precisely when he's meant to.
Yeah, exactly. And just to give you a sense of my sense of humor, like I could say to Dave right now, you could go out in the woods, like put your beard up around your head and put your hair around down your face.
Yeah.
And run around and start screaming. And next thing you know, there's Bigfoot. So I have a real sense of humor when it comes to this kind of thing.
What needs to happen, Niall?
I'm going to turn my camera off for a second. I'll be back.
The three of us need to get together, maybe with some of these other people, and have some pints. And
absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
That's what we need to do.
Yeah, I did learn something about Wendy. Everything I say is kind of with a humorous slant. It's
Dave,
not
that's
judgmental.
That's beautiful.
It's just kind of.
Is it,
Dave? That's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, exactly. Bigfoot. Yeah.
There it is. Oh, that was your beard. Nice.
There you go. Take a photograph of that. And the Bigfoot.
Scott Allen is in for pints.
I'm always in for pints.
Always in for pints.
Yeah.
Sometimes gallons if it's really good.
Gallons, yeah.
Like a lovely mead.
Well, how many pints are in a gallon? If there's
Not
4
enough.
pints in a quart.
That's a good question.
That right?
That's a good question. In a gallon.
How many
I
pints
think
are in
there's 16.
16? Here, let me find
I
out.
believe so.
Hey, Siri, how many pints are in a gallon? 8 imperial pints.
I think there's
1 imperial gallon.
Yeah.
I don't know if we could get Niall to drink an imperial pint.
No, I think there are 80 pints within a keg.
80 pints in a keg.
Is the metal cylinder, that they roll into the pubs.
Did you say a keg of nettles? Who would want to drink a keg of nettles?
Nettles?
No, metal.
Oh, metal. Oh.
The big...
It'll test your metal, Dave.
The big... maybe you don't have those in the States.
Metal pints? Or kegs? We do. Mostly metal kegs.
Yes.
So.
They hold 80 pints.
So,
80
we have some...
80. Yeah. So I'm not sure how that converts to gallons or liters or whatever, but it's 80 pints. I think there's 4 pints to a liter. So do the math.
Oh, Scott Allen says roughly 160 pints in the kegs where he works. He works in a brewery.
Well, that must be a huge keg.
That's a
huge. That a full barrel? Scott Allen, is that considered a full barrel?
A full barrel? Yeah.
Yeah. Say there's 4 pints to a liter. Or so. And 8 pints to 2 liters and blah, blah, blah. I've never been good at maths, but anyway.
I've never been good with metric system, so.
Absolutely. So, yeah. But
how you doing, Pearson?
Well,
You're
been
not
a very...
supposed to count them. You're supposed to empty them.
There you go.
Man. We got drinking on the mind today, huh, boys?
Always on the mind. I can't always do it, though. I'm a dad with kids at home.
And I drive a lot, so.
How you doing,
I don't have to worry about either of those, but being 17, I suppose I'd get in a little bit of trouble if I was to do that. So I had to.
Oh, you're not too young to drink. You're just living in the wrong country.
Yeah, there you go. I've had to run my
Castile.
Of drinks to coffee.
You're up in Canada, right?
Yeah.
I remember. Yeah. You have that.
What's up now?
Great. I just was asking you. I think we spoke before. I think you're up in Canada.
I'm not sure what you're asking though, dude.
No, you live in Canada, right?
You live in Canada.
You live up in Canada, Pearson, right?
No, I live over in Missouri.
Oh, Missouri.
Yeah,
kind of like Canada.
Just not as strange because you have
it's wide and open like Canada.
It's wide and open like Canada.
It feels about like Canada right now. It's freezing up here for our standards.
Nettles is Paige Rockwell Suarez. Sorry, Paige. You're going to have to give it to me one more time. Paige Rockwell's dad's middle name is Nettles. I think some of you might be catching this in a delay because that was a few minutes ago. It was something Nettles.
That's possible.
It's possible.
No, 5x5 here. Straight up.
Okay.
Straight up. Castile, I would say that did you spend some time in New Orleans?
No, I've never been to New Orleans. I'd like to go someday, but I've never been up that way.
Well, you guys are Americans, Scotty and Dave. You have to place this accent.
We are.
I think it's very Canadian French, or else it's Louisiana or something like that.
He's American.
He's American. Good night, Mern.
That's no offense.
Pardon me one second, guys. Mern's signing out. She said, it's been a while. I'm going to bed as I haven't been feeling too well today. Bye, Scotty. Bye, Dave. Bye, Niall, Barbara, Paige, Michael, Sarah. Bye, everybody. See you, Mern. Glad to have you here. Oh, wait. That was Matthew.
Matthew's also going to bed.
Suddenly, the thing scrolls up. Sometimes I go to click, and it scrolls.
You had Mern up there. You had Mern up there. Now you have Matthew up there. They switched.
Yeah, I had her there, and then I went to click again, and something got screwed. I hate Mises.
I said to Matt earlier on that he's the main man. He's the main man. I love Matthew.
Yes, he is.
Sainsbury. He's a very kind man, and
he's a very kind person.
I love the reach of this show. We have Amanda in Australia. We've got Niall in Ireland. We've got Matthew down in Barbados. We're just all over the planet. Mm-hmm. I love that.
We've got some people in New Zealand. We've got, of course, all over the United States. We've had some people in Egypt. We had Momin Saad in Egypt would come and listen to the show every now and then. Yep. And we had him on one night, impromptu. And I don't know if you were here for that one.
I was.
Okay. You either now. I'm not sure if you saw that one. That was a lot of fun. That did my heart a lot of good. That one, because I haven't seen him.
He sucks up to you well.
Well, yeah. I haven't seen him face to face in since 2015. Was the last time I was in Egypt. Was it 2015 or 2016? I think.
But what was great is it was like no time had passed between the two of you.
I know. It was just like, hi. And well, we talk every now and then online, but he is such a good man and a sweet man. And so it was so good to see him. Anyway. Moment was fun, Sarah says. Yes, he was.
Pearson, you have something?
Grumpy says it's because you're too hottie Scotty. You're popular. That's why it scrolls up so fast. That's got to be it, Grumpy. That's got to be it. Sure.
Hold on a second. Scotty Pearson's trying to say something. What'd you say, son?
Sorry, Pearson.
Oh, no, it's all right. Definitely glad to be on the show today. It's been one of those days, we had blood work done today to find if bone infections are going on with me today. So it's been a hell of a day, to be honest with you. Back and forth, blood work being done, all the way over to computer issues. I've been trying to diagnose a Windows 7 computer with microphone, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth issues for the past 4 hours. So that's been fun.
No, that's not easy. That's not easy. Yeah, and by the way, Windows 7 is the best platform. Keep Windows 7 because it's better than Windows 10. It's better than Windows 12. Just a FYI.
I don't recognize this Windows talk. I'm on a Mac.
It's computer
version 11.7. So
he's a Mac
user.
No,
you traitor.
I have both.
I'm a Windows man typically, but that's only because of programs for the blind only being accessible typically. I mean, there is some accessibility with Mac, but Windows tends to go a little farther, and plus they're not as they're easier to jailbreak when it comes to installing programs and whatnot. But this one has proven very difficult.
So you're a blind gentleman, Castillo.
Yeah, I am. I'm fully blind, and then I have technically I have a bone disease that makes me blind, sort of a osteoporosis type disease, but it's very rare. It's like 140 cases in the world, so it's a pretty rare disease that also coincides with me having vision loss. So I don't have any vision. So technically, most of the time, it's screen readers for accessibility. And when it comes down to it, most of the time, websites, StreamYard especially, has been very accessible. Thank God for doing live streams. So it's been a pretty easy ride until you have computers with all the issues like I have today, and then it's just installing just about everything in the books to try and get things to work, running to your local Best Buy because Radio Shack isn't in business anymore, and finding any components or anything. So it tends to be a fun ride. Today has been a very interesting day, if anything.
Now, pardon my ignorance when I ask this, because I don't understand blindness. I hear some people say they're blind and they say, well, I'm legally blind. I can still see light. I can still see shapes. For you, when you say you're totally blind, does that mean does your eyesight pick up any light at all? Do you pick up any movement at all? Or just...
I have a little bit of shadow perception. But what that basically means for me, though, is I couldn't tell you what is in front of me. I could just tell you that I see basically a dim, blurry outline of something, but it's really not enough to be of any use. If anything, it can just be a hindrance every now and then, because if you see one, like for an example, if you see a bit of a shadow right by a staircase or something that you're going by, it tends to throw you off because you think you're about to fall down it, being that you can't exactly recognize what it is. And that's just an example of how that stuff typically works. There's 1,000 more, but it's something you tend to kind of, when you're completely blind, like, it's a whole different world for those that are partially blind with enough eyesight to be able to be of use, and then for those that are completely blind, because it can be a whole other ball game when it comes to software and accessibility in the real world and things like that. Then you throw on a bone disease and you got yourself one hell of a ride.
Yeah, Castile, can I ask you a question? And this is an interesting one, because I'm totally blind in my right eye, and that is because I have multiple sclerosis. I was diagnosed in 2016 with multiple sclerosis, but it attacked the nerve around my right eye. That's how they diagnosed us. So I'm effectively left-eyed, but I'm still an artist. I can still write and draw and all that kind of stuff. But I've gotten used to the fact that it's not complete blindness in my right eye. It's kind of like a grey fog. Like it's like a huge fog has rolled up, and I can't really see through my right eye. But sometimes I test myself, and I kind of close my left eye, and I look through my right eye, and I try and navigate myself through the computer, or through the doorway, even I recognize things, so I don't need help to recognize things. So it's more or less. I suspect you're not totally blind. And what I mean by that is you would need help if you were totally blind, even to navigate a computer. Sure. So I presume that you have some kind of grayed out vision, which is similar to what I've described.
A little bit, which I'll show you. This is with my computer, for an example. It's completely text to speech based. There's really no eyesight involved at all. Like, for an example, this is the type of thing you would hear when navigating a computer like I use, which is just normal Windows computers, but with a program installed. It sounded kind of like this.
Add a marker button to activate. Press space bar. Alt followed by A. Tab. Current playback time is 5.
For an example, there, I'm in a voice recording app. I was just testing out a microphone earlier, but that's I don't know how well you could hear that, but that text-to-speech voice is really what navigating comes down to for me, and that's on the phone, on the computer. It's pretty much universal when it comes to using things.
Are you navigating this totally alone, or do you have somebody to help you?
Oh yeah. Typically, I'm doing things. Well, nope. That's typically, me navigating stuff on my own.
Okay.
A misconception a lot of the time in the blind world is that people need help with things, because there is ways for people to do most things. Certain things like cooking tend to require a little bit of assistance, at least to begin with. I know some blind gentlemen that can do that type of thing on their own, but things like that require assistance and training. It's basically like just training your senses in a whole different way than everyone else interacts with the world, because typically your interaction during the day would be sighted when it comes down to it. You're using your vision more than you're using your ears for conversation and interactions with people, and some, verbal cues from whatever you interact with on a day-to-day basis. Mm-hmm. But the accessibility part, typically, it's like about a 30-70 when it comes to eyes versus ears, with the eyes being at the 70 and the ears being 30. With me, it comes down to about a 99/1 ratio for ears versus eyes. So typically, my ears.
I apologize, Castile. I remember I was asking you about your accent earlier on.
Yeah.
I now realize that you're partially deaf as well.
Well, no, I'm pretty much, I'm not deaf. I have
no, but you have some partial deafness. Maybe.
Well, I actually have more hearing than, I would say, even more hearing than probably anyone in the studio right now.
Well,
depending on.
I'm sorry. What was that?
So he has more hearing than
kidding.
anyone else in the studio.
No, Scotty almost always doesn't hear what's being said.
Yeah. No,
listening comprehension can be a little lower on certain occasions, but that's a personality trait.
Yeah, I think you would agree, Castile, that you don't mind, guys, if we digress from the main topic just for a moment.
Sure. There's not really a topic, so we're good.
I would say that your other senses are become more tuned.
Very.
Your hearing. Again, I'm Irish, so maybe I'm just hearing an accent that I don't recognize, right?
That could be too.
Yeah, that could be too. And so your other senses, I'm not going to talk about your sense of taste or your sense of smell because that's irrelevant to the conversation. But hearing would be important. I think that with Windows 7, with your laptop or your phone, or I suspect it's a laptop, there's a certain familiarity or a routine that you get into, and you see a certain amount to it to enable you to log on to certain websites or certain groups, along with the voice help. The voice help along with your computer enables you to navigate the computer. Would I be right?
Yeah, basically what it boils down to is everything on the computer here is done by a text-to-speech generator that will read anything on screen to me through the text-to-speech voice. So I'm seeing literally nothing on screen. It's all being used or utilized through hearing, and that goes for just about everything in my life. The only thing I could say I maybe use my vision for is when I'm drawing near to something. I can think that I'm getting close to something, but a lot of the time with blind people and other people too, and this isn't necessarily scientifically confirmed by all the big wigs in science, but the body and typically the mind have this sixth sense. And the way I explain it to people is if somebody was, say, staring at the back of your neck, you would get the idea that somebody's either behind you or you could feel from which direction. And we're really, most of us blind people, or even deaf people sometimes, it really just depends on the disability, are very in tune with that, but only with other objects. Like right now, I'm right beside my bed, and if I moved backwards, I can tell that there's a taller object, which would be my dresser right beside me, or say, my piano stand for my digital keyboard. I could say there's something about, 3 feet tall beside me, and it doesn't work like that all the time, but once you're in tune with your environment and know a place well.
Yeah, it's just it comes down to familiarity, doesn't it? Because your other senses become more tuned than normal people with their full senses. So the other senses that you have become more attuned to your surroundings. So you can tell when something is near you or far away.
Yeah,
etc. Yeah.
That even plays into the paranormal aspect, which I think I talked a little bit about that on the first show I was on. But that tends to play into the paranormal aspect because I'm really in tune with senses and I can sense energies. Sorry, what? I cut you off there, Niall. Sorry about that.
No. I was just saying that actually it leads directly into this entire, we can segue into the original interview. I think that senses can be refined, and the senses that are taken away can be replaced by other senses, which is, I think, is what you're getting at, Castile. That senses can be all of a sudden discovered that you never knew that you had before, because you have to tap into those senses. Is that what you mean?
That's really true, because a lot of the time, people aren't tapped into those sentences, whether that be energy detection around you, or if they are, they ignore it because that's what popular culture or whatever have you teaches them from birth is, ignore that, you're not feeling that. It goes back to like ancient times with like cavemen having to, for an example, run away from something that's hunting them. And I think it kind of goes back to that. But honestly, a lot of the time, I'm not sure exactly what the root trace is from, but I can tell you, like, for an example, if I like went into a Bass Pro shop about a year or two ago. Is everyone familiar with those?
A Bath Grow? What did you say?
Bass Pro. It's like a hunting
Pro.
and
It's a
fishing
sporting goods store.
Yeah,
hunting store, is it? Yeah. Okay.
And what they had is they had a gun display of old guns. They were doing a historical type display, and I could sense, like, when we were going past, when I placed my hand on the cabinet, you would get like a feeling or a sense from that cabinet, and I couldn't explain what it was about it that gave me a feeling or a sense, but I could sense certain energies. Like on one, it was kind of a sad energy. On the other, it was like a very like agitated, manic, almost type energy that, it almost felt like fight or flight emanating from.
Yeah, which is all based on vibration and a sense of something being replaced. I'm not going to call it a sixth sense, but it's another sense that was replacing your visual impairment.
But it's like using your third eye.
Yeah, kind of. Well, yeah. Well, that's kind of shaker
That's
stuff.
hard for you to
I don't
agree
really
with,
go for that.
I understand,
but
right.
I think scientifically it makes perfect sense, and I think that Castile is explaining it very well. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, Castile. Please continue.
No, it's completely fine. It's just, that's something I've been in tune with. And I know blind people that aren't as in tune with it, of course, but I tend to be, because for one, I've had a background in noticing paranormal things. I grew up in a very, very paranormal haunted house. And in my experience, I was very prone to sensing energies or vibrations, as you call them here. And you kind of sense that type of thing more and more. Once you start sensing it, if you don't get that turned off in your mind, it's something that happens more and more. And like one challenge I give to people is more and more, and this is just kind of a thing you can do that's always in my mind a good idea. Really go around your environment, close your eyes, go in an environment where you know you're going to be safe, navigate that with your eyes closed, and keep doing it and see what you sense, see what you pick up on. Do it like in a quiet environment, say your room or somewhere late at night, and just kind of see what you pick up on, because I guarantee you after a while you'll start to notice little feelings or activity type energy from across your room, and it may come from like computers. You may feel like a weird feeling from an area where a computer is, sort of like a almost a warmth. I feel it on, like, for an example, like the back of my neck. It's like a pressure. If someone's behind me, I have a pressure type feeling, sort of similar to barometric pressure if you have a storm rolling in. that will tell me that something or someone is around me, or I can feel in the air if something moves past me. But when you play into like the ghostly side of that, and I know that some people don't believe in this, but when you think about it, anything is
I believe in
possible.
everything you're saying, Castile. Everything you're saying, because it makes total sense. Because it's based on the senses.
When you think about everything in the paranormal world, there's a lot of things that and I won't say that certain things are real or not, because who am I to judge? I don't know. But, there is a lot that people wouldn't believe that is very, very accurate and true to some people, because a lot of experiences that I've had, for an example, if you told me about these before they happened, I wouldn't believe you.
Pearson, Sarah, I'm sorry, I thought you were done with your thought.
You are prone to the belief.
Go ahead.
No, you're okay, Scotty. Go ahead. What did Sarah say?
Sarah Yusuf had a question for you. She asks if you're sensitive to EMF.
I don't know exactly the definition of EMF, but I think I am, because I'm pretty sure you're talking about like energy spikes, I guess you would say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm very, very sensitive to that type of thing. In certain rooms, if tension is rising, I will start to feel it, even if I don't know what's going on. In certain places, like cemeteries, I will feel a lot of energy spikes that come from certain areas. And sometimes I will actually have things manifest when it comes to experiences. Like at my old house, I had certain areas that were like a very heavy, oppressive, bad energy. And I noticed things subconsciously would happen when it comes to, if there was ever fights, they would happen in that area, or if there was ever, a bad experience, so to speak, a negative. Holy crap, my computer just scared the bejesus out of me. I apologize. My computer started talking on its own behind me. That scared the crap out of me. But
sorry, what does EMF stand for? I have no idea. What
electromagnetic fields. It's radiation.
Electromagnetic fields. Okay. All right. I'm sorry. I didn't know that. There you go.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I'm going to go ahead and plug in my phone. I'm going to plug in my phone here, Scotty. So hold on just a minute. Right. I'm going to mute, and then I will be
all right. That's okay.
Right back in here.
All right. Well,
I have to say, kind of a fascinating conversation.
And not anything I'm very well versed in, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
Yeah, it's I know Scotty's about to say, "Listen, I'm getting tired. We have to get off here, right?"
Well, it'll be in about 8 minutes.
About 8 minutes.
7 minutes.
Yeah. But it's fascinating. Yeah.
6 minutes and 47 seconds, precisely.
To hear what Castillo had to say is just like taking the wind out of my sails, totally.
Yeah.
And I've probably taken the wind out of your sails, and it's kind of like, what do we talk about now? It's just like fascinating.
Well, we've got a few minutes left, and so we'll just stick to the topic at hand. But and there's no stricture saying we have to sign off at 11. I just do. I don't live alone, and I've got kids and all that who are thankfully in bed already, because I don't hear any thumping upstairs.
They were really quiet tonight. Well, you had a recording going probably during the first hour, so they were.
Yeah. So I stepped up once during the recording and back in. So I used to do all my shows recorded. For a year straight there, I did recorded shows. So it was just easier. I'd get up in the morning and do my show and
can you guys hear
play it at night.
Yes.
Pearson.
Alrighty, I switched back over to a Bluetooth headset mics. If any buffering, folks, let me know.
I have to say that I've been taken down a peg or two, not by the show tonight, but by Castile's eloquent explanation of his condition and how he copes. It's very easy to, I don't know, sometimes I need a kick in the ass, It's very easy to criticize people,
Irish.
Well, I'm Irish, so I talk and I have opinions about everything. But I'm also very sensitive to if somebody says, if somebody even inclines towards something that is I've been taken left of field of or blindsided by, which you've blindsided me by, pun intended, blindsided me by. It kind of puts the entire show in context. But just to get back to the show, Scotty.
Yeah.
I was kind of humorous about the show. I'll be honest, and you've seen my comments in the chat room. I really didn't take it very seriously. It wasn't really a serious scientific discussion.
It wasn't it wasn't meant to be. It was a conversation with Wendy about what Wendy does.
Yeah, it was like a couple of guys chatting, and I made fun of that, and I kind of said, well, it's like, it's not that important, and it turned out not to be. But what Castilla said tonight is extremely important. But having said that, I admire, you, and I don't want you to feel that anything I ever come in with is meant as superfluous. It always has something behind it. So
I see what
we have an expression in Ireland. We slag people off.
I've grown to know you fairly well, Niall. Not intimately, certainly as a friend. Like we go hang out all the time or something. But you're here enough, and you talk enough. You like to, you come in and you like to express yourself. You like to express what you're thinking. You don't always have the same filters I would put on in this situation. I tend to not be. I don't hold punches, but I did a lot in my younger days. I don't hold back from things I say as much now, but I have always, because I've been to so many debates, politics, religion, spirituality, all of that over the years, that I've tended to try to be very diplomatic when I say things. You're Irish. You don't have to be diplomatic.
Yeah. I'm the reverse of Scotty. In my younger days, I said whatever. Masonry has tempered that. I now listen more and speak less, and often just say, "Oh, I just won't comment on that."
And I talk a lot. I talk to sound things out. I talk when I tell a story on the show or even in real life. I tend to, because I'm an illustrator and I'm visual. I'm the opposite of what Pearson would be. His visual is in his head. My visual is the things I see, and I interpret those. If I'm not drawing or painting them, I'm writing about them, or I'm trying. When you write a scene in a book, you're trying to describe that for somebody who's not seeing the same picture you're seeing in your head. And so I try to go in and describe, and I do the same thing when I talk. I like to paint visual pictures with my words. And so that's just what I do. Professor Bauer, you're coming in at 2 minutes before the end of the show. Uh-oh, do we have time for him to say hello? I don't take that personally. It's just a joke.
If we all promise not to say anything, he could have the last two.
You know that the only reason that I'm coming in is because you got 2 minutes, and it sounded like you needed something to fill that 2 minutes with. So I thought, oh, what the hell? I'll go ahead and jump in.
Well, take a shot. Take a shot.
Well, the one thing that I've been doing some work, and I had the recorded interview you did with Wendy, and I was listening to that conversation, and it sparked all kinds of different ideas and thoughts. And she had mentioned remote viewing, and I was about ready to jump into the chat, and I realized, wait a minute, this is recorded.
Yeah.
But the whole idea of the psychic abilities, which you had said, sometimes you think maybe you kind of believe in it and sometimes you don't. And she came back and said, this is something that everybody has, which is something that I've gone on about ad nauseum.
I don't disbelieve in psychic ability. Because I would say 99 out of 100 people that tell me they're psychic, I think it's bullshit.
Well, that has a lot to do with people being, the whole ego thing getting involved.
Yeah.
But the tie-in that I was just now listening to while I was working was what Pearson was saying and what Niall was bringing up in relation to the other abilities. When you have some kind of inhibition or some kind of problem with one of the senses that we have, others kick in. And those senses also include psychic abilities. And I think Pearson was also talking about some of the paranormal activities that he had experienced in the home that he grew up in. And I think that those psychic experiences and abilities are things that we all have in various degrees. It's like, when somebody's born with an incredible artistic skill set like you, Scotty, and Dave, and Niall, that's something that you have as an innate part of the frequency signature that makes up who you are and who we are. And we all come with varying degrees of skills in this realm. Me, I look at art and music, and in particular because of my musical background, as a psychic ability. I think that these are things that are a part of the consciousness that makes the frequency stamp that we are, that makes us all the individuals that we are. And I think that some of the things that Pearson was talking about were examples of how the senses, the mind and the consciousness can take over. It can help rewire. It will rewire itself, given enough understanding and patience and focus on trying to figure those things out and leverage them. And I think that's part of what both Niall was talking about as well as Pearson. So
Robert,
yes,
that was brilliantly put. Brilliantly put.
Oh,
and
well,
thank you so much for jumping on at the end, because I have to say, Professor,
Wendy
that you kind of nailed it. You kind of nailed it. You kind of nailed it.
Well, it's just
and I
my.
have to say, right.
Yep. Go ahead, Pearson.
Right before we end the show, I know we're probably really close, if not over, but I would encourage everybody, to really experiment with it. Like the experiment I talked about, trying to feel your
way around the room.
And
exactly.
Try and sense some energy or feel something. Your mind, especially like right before you go to sleep, for an example, sometimes right before you're dozing off, kind of in that half asleep, half awake feel sometimes, then you're really sensitive to that kind of thing. And there's other examples of that. When you're in a really relaxed state is a good time to do it. Don't do it when you're stressed out, because then you're going to sense something you maybe didn't want to, but try that out and try to experiment out, because I guarantee you, you will get results after a while, and it will be interesting. And it's good to build up your defense mechanism when it comes to sensing energy, because if you can build that up to where you can kind of build your own mechanism for navigating without senses, that's a good thing to have. And also sensing energies and deflecting those energies, that way they don't impact you on a personal mental level. That's a good skill to have, and not many not one that most have, So I would encourage everyone to really try that out, and maybe say in the chat room or something at some point, how that kind of works for you.
Yeah, and I did say to you, I like to call you Castile. I hope you don't mind, because I love the sound of it. It sounds.
It's a great name.
It sounds vaguely French, But I will say that I am 90% blind in my right eye. So I kind of know what you're talking about. I'm always walking into pillars and stuff like that when I'm out because my perception is, because, I don't, I'm not one of these people who goes on holidays or, hangs around groups of people or whatever, because my right side is always blind, more or less. But I have vision through my left eye. And I have 90% to my right. So I my right eye sees shadows. My artwork, if anyone has ever paid any attention to my artwork, you will always see that one eye is blind and the other is open. But that's just neither here nor there. But that's what that's about.
One of the questions I had for both you, Niall, and Pearson, do you guys experience anything along the lines of synesthesia, which is where it's where people will see sounds and hear colors and those types of things? Do you have any?
Mostly in the dream world.
In the dream world, okay.
In the dream world.
And you, Pearson?
I do when it comes to, I guess you would say when it comes to energies, I do. Like, I can sense somebody, like, for an example, Scotty on the show did about the Holocaust. I can sense that you had a dark, brooding type energy that night. Just because of the feeling I got through the broadcast, I could tell that your mind was on maybe some dark things even besides the Holocaust that day. And it was a kind of a darker day for you when you were looking at that stuff because it was really affecting you. I don't know how realistic that sounds, but it seemed like to me, through the energy I sensed through you talking, that it was really, really affecting you. And like I've had the same sense about, like, say, you, Niall, even, I have a feeling that there is something that, like, is really, really bugging you. I would say, like, personally, that's caused you to be really, say, irritated with certain things. And it's, kind of stressing you out. And I can just kind of sense an energy to people's voices. And it isn't so much about being in the room, it's just an energy.
Well, that sounds
that I get from people.
Scotty, I hope you're paying attention to this because I know you are. This is.
I'm sorry. What?
I know that you're paying. Stop. That wasn't funny. That wasn't funny. But seriously, this sensory perception is exactly what we were talking about.
Yeah,
and exactly what the show was about. From another aspect, one that I didn't take very seriously, I will admit, but this has been absolutely mind-blowing for me.
And I think you're
the captain's cabin.
You're right when you say it's from a different aspect. I believe that wholeheartedly. And to qualify that, I would say one I think is physical abilities that are able to either compensate or to balance out other physical capabilities. Sensory perception of a psychic kind, I think, is on a different plane. I don't think, how would I say this? Now, maybe I'm completely a hogwash on this, but I would think that psychic ability doesn't necessarily rise or fall based on a physical ability or disability. I think it's a tuned in sort of thing. How do you get tuned in? Would you be tuned in? Would you be more psychic, say, if you didn't have eyesight? Would you be more psychic if you didn't have hearing? Would you be more psychic? And perhaps there are physical senses that can be piqued or can be tapped or can be utilized that can get you over certain. I'm pretty sure if I didn't have to hear anything and I was always in my own head, couldn't hear music, couldn't hear people, maybe could feel vibration, that might affect my psychic ability.
Dave, I think you're on it to a point, but I think that in this case, the loss of sight, or possibly even with the loss of hearing, you would do this. The psychic ability that everybody has, because you're not using that other sense, can be brought forward easier, and it helps compensate for the missing sense.
Exactly. In fact, I like to use the example of savants as the true some of the most pure examples and expressions of connected to the universal conscious, the conscious, call it Akashic records. And it's easy to use that term when you look at people that have these incredible sensory deprivation. I mean, some of them, they can't see, they certainly can't speak, but they can sit down at a piano or with a piece of paper and a pencil and create some of the most incredible stuff instantly. There is no prior training. There is no historic component of the current biology that would give any indication that they would know how to play a piano or how to do incredible math or how to have a memory. Those kinds of things to me those are pure examples of the deprecation of particular sensory capabilities in our organs and our systems that are in sensory mode. Absolutely. Once they are shut down, there's this incredible channel that's opened up because there isn't anything in the way. And the immediate connection with those kinds of skills and knowledge and capability and artistry come through unimpeded.
There's a blind kid out in New York that draws amazing things.
Oh yeah.
But he draws like an inkjet printer. He takes his pen across the thing and just moves down. And when he's done, he's got a skyline and everything. And it's the skyline out in front of him that he can't see.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of, what was the Rain Man Kim, the real guy's real name was Kim something. But that whole movie was about this guy's ability just to remember anything. He could look at something and tell you, just look at it once, and 5 years later tell you what page, how many rows down, and where that word was.
Yeah. Now, if you don't mind, I'd just like to add one more thing, and then Scotty can shut down. We've discussed a lot of things tonight, but I will also say that I think I touched it in the chat room. Autism, trauma, PTSD have a lot to do with this as well, right? A lot of people who claim psychic ability or the ability to read people or read situations is simply because they have been traumatized as a child, or they're on the spectrum of autism, or schizophrenia, I would suspect.
And along those lines, there are people that have had, traumatic injuries that have come out of a coma, for example, some traumatic head injury or something, and all of a sudden knew 5 languages that they'd never been exposed to.
Yeah, well, that's the extreme example.
But that's physical, right?
I would say that in general, if you were to isolate it, I'd say that PTSD would be a major factor in a lot of so-called psychic ability, because you've been shut down in your own emotions for so long that the emotions that you send out to the universe, I'm not a big, aficionado of all of this stuff, but what you send out is very intense. So you're a very intense person. You take a lot in, and you experience a lot, which you can term as psychic. So I'm very dubious about that side of things, as Scotty knows. But I will agree that trauma, autism, schizophrenia, these all have to be taken into consideration when it comes to psychic ability. I'm not saying that your guest was schizophrenic or anything like that. But all of these things have to be taken into consideration.
I would think that those things, like in other things in life, those don't heighten the ability, but it maybe open some doors for you that you didn't know existed, because you vent your energies in different directions.
Yes.
Anyway,
it's all the same. It's all the same kind of. It's just like a different energy source, if you like.
Yeah, and the one thing that Pearson you were talking about The
I
one
think
thing
we had
that
a nice breakthrough here tonight.
Yeah, and the thing that I wanted to mention that Pearson was talking about, it sounded like what he was expressing was empathic capabilities and empathic sensory, being able to, sense or feel something from the people that he's talking to, that there's something else going on. So that just seemed to be another part of your skill set, Pearson, is this empathic capability. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because I think, and I'll say it shortly, but I think the energy that I have noticed, like, sort of plays into what Niall was saying. I don't have, autism, but I have PTSD definitely of certain things, and that kind of opened, to put it in different perspective, Niall, that opened doors when it comes to things I would sense as a defense mechanism. After I had so many injuries, when I had traumatic injuries, it opened up a lot of emotions and a lot of doors for things I sensed. And that led to empathic abilities. I would say, I don't know how accurate they are, but because I would try and sense things of people, sensing people around in dreams. When it comes down to it, like, I have a big thing about predicting my, like, for an example, I predicted dogs dying very, very accurately. I predicted my injuries very, very accurately. And that all started to come after all the times my bones broke, because it's been many a time. Like, I've had over 60 fractures, I would say, if not more, over the years. Fractures and breaks of bones that really made me open my mind or be at a weak spot to where I would sense things without paying attention at first, and then I started to pay attention to it, and I sense things about people. And I know, Niall, you probably don't play much into the psychic stuff, but when you think about it, the same vibrations or energies, because I know sometimes
I don't. Just to answer your question, I don't play into the stereotypical psychic, as was on the show tonight. No offense, Scotty.
And
but I do play into all aspects of.
And what we're gonna do? We're gonna leave it right there for now.
Absolutely.
We're gonna have to do some of this
on a negative note.
It's
I'm sorry.
a
about
much
that.
bigger conversation than we have time for right now.
Absolutely.
So perhaps
another day.
Jump into this again. So Pearson, thanks for being on with me. We'll talk again about this some more, I think. You have a good night, brother. And you too, Niall. Good to see you, brother.
Yep.
Always welcome to voice your opinions here. So thanks for being here.
Good to see you again, Niall.
And Professor Bauer, as always, good to see you. I wish you'd have been here an hour ago. So
I was here. I was just, like I said, in the background.
Other things.
He was just skulking in the corner.
I was actually just kind of stalking, waiting to see if there was a moment where I should inject and throw a few things out there. And I thought,
I think I'll just wait till the last 3 minutes.
Wait till the last minute and make it go another hour.
Which is okay sometimes.
I could push this out to 12.
I could. I know I can. And he's in mountain time.
That's right. It's still early for me.
It's only 10:18 there. All right. Good night, Professor Bauer. Thanks.
Time is just a number.
And Uncle Dave, as always, good to see you. And I will talk to you again soon, brother.
All right.
Have a good night. And everybody over there in the chat room, everybody listening and watching, thank you for sticking around tonight. It was a fun show. It was a fun talk with Wendy. And you can connect with her on Facebook or on Instagram. Just look up Wendy Robertson in England. You'll find her. And Grumpy Stack, Scott Allen, Nicole McClellan, Sarah Youssef, everybody that's left over there in the chat room, and several of others of you that David Castle may still be here, and Michelle Canham Free. All of you who are still here, thanks for being here. Thanks for your time. And as you know, the Captain's Cabin is the informal part of the show. So Hopefully you all enjoyed the formal part and the informal. And there's Wendy Robertson. Good night, Wendy. Thanks for being my guest today. And we will do more of this, as Wendy and I have been talking about doing kind of a Robertson. See what I did there? Robertson type of a show, at least once a week. So we're going to be working that out in the very near future here, maybe even as early as next week. So thanks again, everybody. You all have a good night. And thanks for being here. And you know what? As always, I'm just going to tell you what I always say, live long and prosper.